Hey Bat fans, Luke here with my next video, and today we're going to go ahead and keep up a little trend I have been going on the past couple of videos I've been putting up, and that's kind of like sticking with the classics. And this one we're going to take a look at today is one that I've been hunting down for quite a little bit. This is not the easiest book to get your hands on, and that is Batman Shaman, written by the great Denny O'Neil with art by Edward Hannigan and John Beatty. Shaman. Shaman is part of the Legends of the Dark Knight series, and if you're not familiar with the Legends of the Dark Knight series, what basically the premise behind the Legends of the Dark Knight series is its stories center on the early years of Batman's career, predominantly around the first year. And Shaman is no different. If you literally had to put this into your Batman, your timetable, this fits nice and snug with Batman Year One. And I mean snug, I mean literally, because parts of Shaman actually bleeds into Batman Year One. You could technically maybe argue how nitpicky you want to get on the details that this might actually be the beginning of Batman's career versus Batman Year One, but we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, so this if you're just kind of wondering where this kind of goes in your Batman timeline. So Shaman, what happens in the book? Again, it centers on the early years of Batman, and actually the book opens up and one of the training events that Batman is going on at this point. He has taken on the employ of kind of a bounty hunter, and I forget the individual's name off the top of my head. His name is Mr. Doggett. And Mr. Doggett and Batman are hunting this individual down in Alaska. And you do see a climax between the hunt, and what basically happens is that the one they're hunting down actually gets pushed off the mountain by Bruce Wayne. But in doing so, the individual takes away some of his clothing and equipment, and it's also very cool on the mountain. And basically, what happens is Batman, or Bruce Wayne at this time, puts himself into some pretty bad danger to the point he passes out, and he wakes up and he's being taken care of by this local tribe of individuals, with one person kind of like being the witch doctor, if you would, and heals Bruce back to health. But how he does it is pretty interesting, in that while Bruce is somewhat subconscious, the head person of this tribe puts on this mask and tells a story of a mouse that is trying to help out a raven, and doing so grows wings and pushes out all the, we'll call it toxins, away from the raven, and doing so saves the raven, and that's how a bat is born. And as the individual tells this story, Bruce miraculously starts to get better and goes back to Gotham. And again, like I kind of mentioned at the beginning of the story, this starts off Batman's going to do some training in this way when he's getting this one individual he's going with to learn how to kind of hone his detective skills and hunt down the bad guys. At this point, has not become Batman yet, and when he goes back to Gotham, you begin to see the events of Batman Year One start to play out, and literally, it's like they took parts of Year One and put it right into the story. You see here the fight and Bruce's first night out, He runs into Selena Kyle and, the big car accident when he has with the cops, whatnot, and comes back, and we have the scene in the study where he sees the bat. So you actually see year one actually play itself out into this story, and technically you do see the first appearance of Batman in here. The first time you actually see Batman don the cape and cowl in this part of the story. And the first night out as Batman, in costume, if you would, his first instance is going to Dr. Leslie Tompkins Hospital, where we come across these thugs who are trying to steal some medicine and end up kidnaps a patient at the hospital, or the clinic rather, and Batman saves everybody, or saves the individual, but there's a twist in this, is that when the individual sees Batman, she says Chupacabra, not Chupacabra, Shukrab. I forget the name. They mention it a couple times throughout. Shukrab. I will say one thing here. Art is very cool in this, in many parts. What's that say? Chubala, that's right. And says the words Chupala and stabs herself in the alley. So you start to see kind of this interaction with Chubala, this cultic, tribal kind of theme, as you find out that Chubala is a god that actually gets played out later on in the story. But that happens, and then you kind of jump forward in time a little bit to basically where you start to see these ritual sacrifices start to happen across Gotham, and you start to see an intermingle between these sacrifices and the drug trade that's starting to come up, heroin, if you would. And Batman's kind of perplexed by this, and what he does is he hires a local doctor to do an excursion to Alaska and try to find out more about that tribe that he spent time with, and kind of come back and kind of play a little bit about that story that may have healed him, because he's kind of skeptical in the beginning of it. But you do see the doctor come back, and he does come back with some of the artifacts that the tribe had, with the masks and whatnot. He actually had an assistant there with him, and you get to see a little bit more of the things that Bruce kind of encountered come back, but the story wasn't there. The doctor didn't get the story from the tribe, but as you see later on, that trip that the doctor went up to Alaska actually turned out to really not degrade the tribe. In that one, when Bruce left to go back to Gotham, he made a promise with the people there he would not speak of the story that was told him, because that was kind of a tribal thing. That tribe has never told that story to an outsider before. But in doing so, Bruce, getting that doctor up there, kind of ruined the society, the culture of the tribe, and in doing so too, they obviously found out who funded that doctor's trip up there, and obviously burn a bridge between Bruce and the tribe. But as the story progresses, you start to see more of a flesh out with anyone who's pretty much connected with that project in Gotham starts to be killed. You see the doctor's killed. You later see that the doctor's assistant is later killed. And Batman at this point is stumped. And what you see as the story continues, more of Batman uses his detective skills going down to a street level story, trying to put the pieces back together, trying to find out what happened, and you really do start to see a connection with this Chubala and the drug trade that's starting to happen in Gotham. That's the doctor that we were mentioning before. But one thing that really does really well in this story is that the layers really do build upon each other as the story progresses. And I'm not going to give too much as to how the story kind of wraps up. I will say that the connection between the drug trade and the individual that kind of is the main villain in this, it does come together pretty well toward the end, and it flushes itself out really well. There are some twists to it, but I will say that, I'll kind of save that toward the end. But you do see, what I think is probably the best part of this book is that this is a very, like I mentioned, a street level story. This is Batman getting at his roots in his early years as a detective, actually putting together the pieces to kind of find out what's behind all this. I will kind of spoil this in a way, in that there is more than one of these one's kind of like a Chubala, and one's kind of like a, I'll just go ahead and show it, why not? I'm not going to say who they are, I'm not going to ruin that. But I've been kind of flashing some of the pictures around already to begin with. But you got the person who's running around wearing the mask of that tribe in Alaska that's stolen artifacts. Then you got this actual person claiming to be the Chubala god, who actually not really trying to be the god. He plays the part of the god, which has been really flushed out between the members of the Gotham drug trade, and how that was flushed out. And there, see right there, kind of like the witch doctor. It says Chubala, but that's actually the main Chubala, the Batman. It's really, I like how it was done in that it kind of took a part of society that's, I think, can kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say influence. I don't think that's it. Okay, influence is good enough. They use their status and their, I'm not gonna say gullibility anyway, but they kind of use this threat of a god, having to play down on the members of this drug trade. That if they don't do what they're supposed to, the god's gonna come get them. So, are the members of the drug trade possibly victims? Maybe. They're kind of played as like a sympathetic bad guy or bad group, but still they're bad. But it's interesting how Denny Neal kind of played on that. Alfred in this is just hilarious. If you're liking the Alfred we're seeing now in Tom King's run on Batman, you're gonna love the Alfred in this, because it's exactly the same type of feel to it. Again, this marries up perfectly with Year One. I think it rides side by side with it. Could say it's one complete story almost. We're in the events that you might start Year One, kind of goes into Shaman a little bit. Then you see Year One play out, and then Shaman continues. It's almost like it's a companion book, which I thought was really great. The art, again, you see some images in here which are just awesome. I mean, early Batman, and it's just really nice. Some of the art here. Keep in mind the The book came out, I think it was in '93. I can't remember for sure. But the art in this for its time kind of put into a context, but you see some Batman scenes are just awesome, and I like the color schemes, especially in these fights here. You see these images of Batman, just the way the color is laid out too, just really awesome, dark and gritty, and really does get that type of feel for the story you're reading, and it really is awesome. Then there are some ones where the art kind of loses its polish just a little bit. I like this one picture here. Batman on top of the city complaining about how cold it is. Just awesome. Getting some really nice art in this. What else? Again, great detective story. If I had to knock it, I think the big bad in this is kind of, when you look at back at the beginning of the story, he does pop up. And his initial appearance, it just feels like it's like out of left field, but then it comes up at the end, and fair enough. So, well, I do like the big bad in this. I think the way it was kind of thrown in the story, it felt a little out of place, but neither here nor there. The story was very nice. Sat down, read it in one sitting. Just an awesome book to read. Comes highly recommended. I'll tell you, I think, to be honest, I think Shaman is for more of the Batman connoisseur, in that I don't want to say that a new Batman fan can't read this and I'm not saying that. I think this is an easy book to read, being that it's so early in Batman's career. You can a new reader can come up and read that and be just fine. But I will say it kind of throws back to the time period, Denny O'Neil. It does have a nostalgic feel to it as you're reading it. So for the longer Batman fans, the ones who appreciate the older stories, will like this a little bit more versus the ones that are just getting Batman now, used to the Snyder, the Tom King era. Might be a little bit of a throwback, but still very accessible read as far as prior knowledge is concerned. But I will say the ultimate drawback of this book is, unfortunately, its accessibility. I'm sure digitally you can get it. Print, very hard. I was hunting down this trade for a couple years, and it was actually one of my goals to get this year, and I did get it along with another one. I just got lucky. The two books I've been trying to get this year and my goals for the year, I got them within the same week. Paid a little bit for it, but I think it's well worth it. I don't even think this might be the second print or something like that. I think the original print trade comes with a different cover, but still awesome story. If you can get your hands on it somehow, some way, definitely read it. Won't be disappointed. If I had to rate this out of 5, I'd give this a solid 4, maybe a 4.5. This was very good for fans of, again, of Batman Year One and the early careers of Batman. You're gonna just eat this up. Great story. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Batman Shaman. Hit me up in the comments below what you thought about this, and we'll bat chat about it and go from there. So, until next video, take care, everybody.